welcome to today's episode of Kandid Kaiya. Today I am here with Marissa, and we're going to be talking with Marissa about how it's been being back on campus, where does she go to school, and any advice that she has. She is at an Ivy League institution, and for anyone who wants to attend an Ivy League institution, stay tuned. Hello, Marissa.
Hi, Nakaya.
How are you today? Can you tell everyone just a little bit about yourself?
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa. I'm a junior at Harvard University. I study history and literature with a subfield in ethnic studies, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
Awesome. Well, you guys heard it. She goes to the Harvard University. Marissa, tell us just a little bit about what inspired you to go to Harvard.
For sure. So I toured Harvard for the first time as a seventh grader during a summer program. And from the moment I stepped on campus, I got that feeling that everyone gets on their college visits when they know that like a school is for them. I loved campus. I loved like the buildings. I loved the history. Like I'm a super big history buff, and I like really enjoyed just how old the school was and how integral it was to like the fabric of like our country's history and like global history at large. And I knew I wanted to be like a mover and shaker in the world. I felt like that was the place to do it. So I kind of put it into my mind that 13 years old, I remember I called my mom after the tour and I said, I'm going to Harvard. And she was like, all right, like, sure, let's calm down. Like, let's finish middle school first. So, but since then, I've definitely wanted to go here. And then as a high school student, I toured again in my junior year. And that was a more like academic and informational tour about like actual student life. And my tour guide was also a Black woman. And just hearing her speak about her experiences here in the community that she was able to find here, like in the classroom and outside of it, really inspired me and like really solidified that this is a place that I felt like I should be.
Why did you, if you don't mind me asking, why did you end up choosing a PWI, so a predominantly white institution, over an HBCU?
For sure. So I actually applied to Howard my senior year and I got in. My decision to attend a PWI was actually purely financial. So a lot of people don't know this, but Harvard and all of the other Ivy League institutions pledge to meet 100% of your financial need. And so my financial aid package here was leaps and bounds better than any financial aid package that I received at any other school, including my local state school as well. So I'm from Georgia, where they have the Hope Scholarship and like a lot of other wonderful programs. Even with all of those things, Harvard's financial aid like could not be matched and could not be beat. And that was a really large factor for me, as my family is like middle class and definitely couldn't afford to shell out thousands of dollars for me to go to college. So the financial aid here is really what solidified that.
Okay. All right. So Marissa, you told us a little bit about why you ultimately chose Harvard and about the financial aid capabilities. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the overall admissions process?
For sure. So the admissions process for me began my junior year of high school with testing. So a lot of people don't know this, but for most selective colleges across the country, you all take SAT subject tests, which I had no idea was a thing going into high school, and I wish I had known. But they're basically an equivalent to the AP test that one might take after completing an AP course. I ended up having to take mine all at once my junior summer because I didn't know that they existed until after I did my college tours. But ideally, someone might take them after they've completed the course that correlates to the subject test. So I took my SAT subject test, and I also took the SAT and ACT. Terrible scores on my SAT. Like that was not the test for me. My ACT, I did pretty well on, within like the 30 to 33 range. Another big tip I would say about like the application process, specifically regarding test scores, because I think that's something that stresses out a lot of people, is that your test scores, you don't need a perfect score to go to these schools. Like you simply don't. At some point, after you hit like above a 31, I would say, on the ACT, everybody starts to seem the same. And so at that point, they know that you're academically capable enough to attend their institution. They really want to see you stand out in your essays and your resume and in your extracurriculars, right? So
Mhm.
So after I completed the common application, I would say I applied regular decision. So I think I finished and submitted my application around November. After you submit your application, you then go through an interview process. So there's a really awesome website called College Confidential. That was like my Bible as I was applying to colleges. And on there, you can find interview questions that are typically asked for these schools. And my advice is just to kind of write out your answers to those questions and think through like what you would say, really get out your interests. And before you go into the interview, make sure that you have a list of like 4 or 5 things that you know you must touch on to really convey who you are. And the interview process is really less about being flashy and, listing out every single accomplishment that you've ever had, and more about showing like, would you be a good roommate? That was one of the questions that the Harvard interviewers I know are like supposed to rank us on. Like, would you want to live with this person? Would you want to hang out with them? Spend a Saturday night with them? And they're really just gauging your personality to make sure you're not like an awful person. So after the interview process, it was really a waiting game. So most people here on Ivy Day in March, when they get in, I was actually fortunate enough to receive a likely letter. So the top 10% of applicants at a lot of these schools will receive a letter in the mail. Usually it's a phone call now, telling them that they actually got into their institution months early in advance because they think you're like a competitive applicant and want you to choose their school. So they want to be the one to tell you first. So I received a likely letter from Harvard, and that was like actively the best day of my life. Like I think there might be like my wedding day, like maybe might top it, maybe. But that
Maybe.
was honestly so great. I was sitting in my room. I was on winter break and I got a phone call and it was like, "Hi, this is so and so from the Harvard admissions department." And I was freaking out, like, "Oh, did I forget something? Like, did they miss my transcript?" And he was like, "No, like, I'm actually calling to tell you that you've been determined a likely candidate for admission. And, as long as your grades stay the same and you don't have any major disciplinary infractions, like, you're going to Harvard." And I was like, "No way." So that's pretty much how it went down for me. But I think the process is different for everyone, depending on if you're applying to schools early decision or early action,
Mhm.
which is basically a process where you find out earlier in the game because you're really certain. I didn't apply early decision to any schools because I wanted to keep my options open and I wasn't super confident of where I was going to get in, which I think we can talk about. But I think just goes to show like how Black women, as we're applying to college, are just told to like doubt their accomplishments and their talent, if that makes sense. So I didn't think I was going to get into any school, and I ended up getting likely letters to like most of the Ivy Leagues that I applied to, which was awesome.
Wow, you come through with the sprinkle of black girl magic on the people connect. You really that's actually answered a lot of my questions, and I think you provided a lot of awesome tips that you guys can't just Google. So y'all heard it from Marissa first. So thanks for sharing. Let's see. So you are a junior now. Just tell us a little bit. We know COVID came and interrupted your journey. Just tell us a little bit about how your experience has been thus far.
For sure. So I think my first year here, I really loved it. There was not a place or a time in my life where I had been happier than I was in that time before we got sent home pre COVID. I really found a sense of community here, specifically within the Black community.
Good.
There are like a pretty substantial amount of Black people who go here. And so I think that's like something important to be transparent about because I think when a lot of people think of the Ivy League, they think of, like a predominantly white institution. They think of like really like uppity, like elitist people. But I was really pleased to find out that there are some really cool, like normal, like humble Black people who go here. And like those are people who I have like really been happy to call my family in my time here. Um, I think overall, I really love Harvard. I think I
Mhm.
can still say that I love Harvard post pandemic, even after all of the stress of like being sent home and doing classes online. I don't think that there's another school that I could go to be honest with you. I love the size of the institution. It's not too big, not too small, which is what I wanted. We're really adjacent to Boston. So you have like your little home in Cambridge, but if you want like a big city feel, Boston is just right across the river. And I think Contrary to a lot of popular belief, I think the professors here actually really do care about you and do care about your growth as a student. And Harvard being a liberal arts institution as well, I think there's just a ton of room to explore. I've taken classes here that if you told me in high school, like I would have told you I would never like have gone out to like try that new thing. But I think this is an environment that really like fosters and like celebrates growth. Um, so yeah, overall, I think my experience has been like largely a positive one. I think the institution, like any other institution, definitely has flaws. And I won't downplay the fact that it is a predominantly white institution. So there is like explicit and like implicit racism that does occur on this campus. So I think it's definitely a give and a take, and like with any place, there's flaws. But I think even amidst all of that, Black people here are still able to cultivate like really strong community for themselves. And so that's been really like integral to my experience here and just like the good times that like I'm able to have as well.
So, just on that topic as well, what have been some ways that you have made friends and also found a sense of community on campus?
For sure. So I think one thing that not a lot of people know is that like the Black Ivy League community as a whole is
Mm,
super tight knit.
right.
There's like 2 degrees of separation between every single Black person who goes to an Ivy League. We all know each other. We all support each other. There are like a lot of inter-college events that take place. We have a big group chat with like every single Black person who goes to an Ivy, like just in my year, right? And so I think the Black organizations on campus really do a good job of providing a safe haven for students, as
Mhm.
well as being professional spaces and social spaces. In addition to that, there are a ton of student organizing that takes place around like issues on campus. And so I think also there are a lot of organizations as well that are in place to support low income students and provide them with resources peer to peer as well. So through the Black community as well as like the first gen low income community, I've really been able to find friends and find a home here in like every aspect of life and of need.
Just tell us a little bit more. I mean, you are at Harvard. We all know that's the cream of the crop. Just what opportunities has this institution provided you?
Yeah, I think people just take me a lot more seriously, sometimes more seriously
Mhm.
than I take myself, to be honest, when you say that you go to Harvard. And so I think that in of itself opens up a lot of doors. I think the alumni network here is really large and really involved. And so Harvard alums are always willing to like lend a hand to a fellow like Harvard student, a fellow Harvard alum. And so I found like really awesome mentorship through just like the alumni network here. And our Office of Career Services has been a really great person, like connect students to alumni all the time. So that's like been one stream of opportunity. I will also say academically as well, I have access to some of the resources in the world, some of the best professors in the world as well. I think like the quality of education that I'm getting here has been really amazing. My freshman year, for example, I wrote an essay and my professor really loved it, and he had connections at like an academic journal and got it published. So at 18 years old, I could say that I'm a published academic, and like
Wow.
professors write me to this day saying that like my article is like on their syllabus. So I think that's an opportunity that can really only happen at Harvard. The professors here have so many connections that like if you express an interest to them, they'll take you where you want to go and beyond. If you ask someone to be your mentor, they're carrying you all the way through. They're connecting you with their friends, and more than likely, like their friends are people in like pretty high places. So I would say like the networking is really the biggest part of the opportunity that comes along with going to an Ivy League institution.
All right. Marissa, last question before we get into your advice. What would you say is the biggest misconception about Ivy League?
I would say that the biggest misconception about the Ivy League is that everyone here is really smart. That's really not true, to be honest with you. Some of the most like the least intelligent things I've ever heard said, I've heard said in a Harvard classroom, to be honest. I think like if you look at the statistics, there's a large portion of the population here that did not get here because they earned their way here, for the
Mhm.
better term. A lot of people here are legacy students. people with connections. And so I would say don't ever let someone who you meet who you heard went to Harvard psych you out, because not everybody who went here is necessarily like super intelligent, to be honest with you. And like, it's really, I would say don't let the elitism that this place like self perpetuates,
Mhm.
like really like get it seep into being the truth. It's really not the truth. And I would say like never let yourself cultivate any sort of inferiority complex in comparison to someone who went to an Ivy League, because you really don't know what resources that they had or what
Mhm.
doors were open for them to get there. And so I would say never assume that like someone who went to one of these schools is automatically better than you, because more likely than not, that's not the case. Like we graduate some real questionable folks from these schools. And so I would say, yeah, like hold your own in any space, regardless of who's in the room, especially if there are Ivy League students in the room.
Yes, very well said, Marissa. All right, so now